Brought to you by...
Growing up in New England and having a deep fascination with the strange and unknown, I have always found myself gravitating toward the areas of our history which carry with them an aspect of the macabre. The works of King and Lovecraft have taken residence as forms of scripture in my life, with my historical intrigue gravitating toward the shadows of the past, and the tragedies stood prominently within. Age-old stories surrounding the folklore of the area became truths at a young age, stories of witchcraft and monsters that carried over from the old world. In cinema, I hadn't seen anything that truly captured that same feeling and essence of those age-old tales. Many had brought the ideas into various forms of visual representation, but none ever quite left me with the same haunted feeling as I would get from reading about them or watching one of the 100 docuseries that cover the subject matter. That is, until Robert Eggers emerged onto the scene. The practice of witchcraft was long feared throughout New England for many years after its early developments. As the population grew and new settlements began to spring up across the vast, untouched terrain of the New World, the threat of the land's mysteries took root in the minds of its new inhabitants. Thousands became consumed by the idea that something against God was influencing those around them, drawing them towards beliefs that were against the societal norms, which at the time basically meant that they were in league with the devil. These knee-jerk ways of thinking would lead to the banishment, torture, and deaths of hundreds, if not thousands of innocents throughout the age. And it's this way of thinking that is explored most prominently throughout every frame of the VVitch. New England, 1630. Upon threat of banishment by the church, an English farmer leaves his colonial plantation, relocating his wife and 5 children to a remote plot of land on the edge of an ominous forest, within which lurks an evil unknown. Strange and unsettling things begin to happen almost immediately. Animals turn malevolent, crops fail, and one child disappears as another becomes seemingly possessed by an evil spirit. With suspicion and paranoia mounting, family members accuse teenage daughter Thomasin of witchcraft, charges she adamantly denies. As circumstances grow more treacherous, each family member's faith, loyalty, and love become tested in shocking and unforgettable ways. Produced by the now infamous A24, this was Robert Eggers' debut feature film, premiering to great acclaim at the 2015 Sundance Film Festival, even winning the Best Director's Prize in the US narrative competition. The film goes to extreme lengths to painstakingly recreate the God-fearing New England, decades before the mass hysteria of 1692's Salem witch trials, using a slow, heavily burdened camera technique to ground us in the overwhelming dread faced by this family, isolated to the outskirts of the thick and ominous forest that surrounds their homestead. As with many of A24's releases, this means crawling dollies that build tremendous amounts of suspense and draws you towards the edge of your seat as you wait for what lurks just beyond your range of sight. Every shot in this movie is framed with the utmost care, confining us to the lives of this family as they struggle to reestablish some form of life for themselves away from the rest of society. The film's dry and drained color palette helps to ground us within the masks of their sorrow, while implanting the feeling that a darkness surrounds them at all times. Not only is this probably one of the most period-accurate narratives that I have ever seen, by fluidly bringing life to a form of English dialect long abandoned and crafting a wardrobe design that cloaks our characters in the rustic hand-spun aesthetic of the colonial era, but it's one that wastes no time in revealing the true horrors that threaten our characters. Early on, we are shown the presence of a withering hag that roams the thicket of forest beyond their land, aiming to disillusion us to any hope that the fears they are experiencing could all be in their minds. To me, this was a genius choice. It allows for the film to separate itself from any attempts at misdirection and tell a straightforward folklore-driven narrative that tells you what you should fear is going to happen and focuses on building the dread toward that inevitability. The performances from the entire cast are absolutely incredible from start to finish, perfectly capturing the physical and emotional attributes of people living in such a turbulent time in our history. Led by misguided faith and stubborn in the face of the true horrors that exist in the dark. To me, this wasn't exactly a film that cried out with an intention to deliver any kind of object lesson, but instead focused on the root elements of the folklore itself, to provide an accurate representation of the type of story that would have been passed around during that time. I suppose if I had to find the deeper meanings behind this tale, it would be a representation of the lengths in which fear can drive us to. We are forced to witness as this family decays before our eyes. Their faith is tested against the presence of true evil, and their minds begin to fracture, turning them toward mistrust amongst themselves, because they are too blinded to see that the object of her fears is what truly ails them. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting ETF on Patreon, where every pledge goes right back into this channel so that we can continue making tons of new film-related content for you to enjoy. If you are liking this style of video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe, and I will catch you all next time. Thanks for watching.